Good afternoon. My name is Lester Snow, Director of the California Department of Water Resources. We've actually been on this site before. A little over a year ago, we were here to commemorate the signing of some landmark flood protection legislation. Legislation where the governor came together with the legislature and passed a suite of historic protections for the state of California. January of 2005, we produced a report on the condition of the flood system in California and essentially laid out for the legislature the chronic condition and the chronic underinvestment of flood protection that put millions of people at risk and billions of dollars of value at risk. In 2006, Governor Schwarzenegger's leadership on infrastructure with the legislature eventually putting on the ballot a flood bond, Proposition 1E, that was overwhelmingly passed by the voters, providing significant and historic investment in flood management in California. It was passed, as I said, by an overwhelming margin. I believe over 60-some% approved it, wanting to invest in basic flood protection, including in this area that we're in today. Now, just as those investments are beginning to take hold and result in actual construction and improvement, we are running into the situation where we may have to curtail those investments. They are threatened by a lack of budget and a lack of ability to sell bonds. Governor Schwarzenegger, despite many distractions in the state and nationally, continues to focus and be committed to basic infrastructure investment, and in particular infrastructure investment to protect the public safety from floods. Before I turn the microphone over to Governor Schwarzenegger, let me introduce the other folks here, speakers here today. Danny Curtin, Director of the California Conference of Carpenters. Stain Buer, Executive Director, Sacramento Area Flood Control Agency. Councilmember Ray Trethewey, Sacramento City Council. And Ken Macias, Chair, California Hispanic Chambers of Commerce. With that, let me turn it over to Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Lester, for the wonderful introduction. And let me just also say thank you very much for Lester doing such a great job. Lester Snow is a great head of the Department of Water Resources and has been really a big believer in infrastructure. And also Councilman Trethewey, we want to thank him for being here today, and Danny Curtin from the California Conference of Carpenters, who has been traveling up and down the state selling the bonds in the first place and now is here to defend and make sure that we continue building our infrastructure. I also want to say thank you to Ken Macias from the California Hispanic Chamber of Commerce for being here today, and then Steinbuer, however you pronounce it in English, from the Sacramento Area Flood Control Authority. We are here obviously today to talk about the devastating effects that it has and the devastating consequences it has of the legislators' failure to take real and comprehensive action here when it comes to our budget crisis. Last week, the board that manages the state bank account has pulled the plug on $3.8 billion of loans to infrastructure projects all over the state of California. This will have a tremendous effect on many infrastructure projects, up to 2,000 infrastructure projects up and down the state. Everything from highways to freeways, on-ramps, off-ramps, to housing, hospitals, schools, and so on. Everything will be affected. As a matter of fact, last week I was down in Fresno, and there they were ready to break ground on an $18 million school building. This is a charter school that was voted by the U.S. News and World Report as one of the top charter schools in America, and then now the plug was pulled and they cannot continue with their project. Yesterday I was at the 405 freeway in Los Angeles, which is one of the busiest freeways, and they have to discontinue now with the 10-mile HOV lane, which is really terrible. This is a $730 million project. Today, just across town, the Placer County Transportation Agency is meeting to discuss the fate of the Lincoln Bypass, which is a really vital project for that area. And right now, I'm at one of the most critical flood protection projects in the state of California. The Thomas levee system shields 80,000 people from the Sacramento River. But this levee is so vulnerable that building permits are not being yet issued because it is such a dangerous area here. And the repairs will cost $600 million, and that has also now been discontinued. We see those kind of things up and down the state of California. And the ironic thing about this is that, here's President-elect Obama, who is talking about an economic stimulus package and wanting to pump up the economy and create jobs by creating infrastructure projects all over the country in all the various different states. And here we are at the same time pulling the plug on infrastructure projects. The legislators were sent to Sacramento to solve problems, and now, with the inaction of the budget, in this budget crisis, they're creating actually more problems. For weeks, the legislators have been posturing and playing political games, and I think it's irresponsible for them. Even though I have to say that right now we are in the middle of the negotiations, and the negotiations are going well. But it has been really irresponsible up until now that they have not created the action that they ought to in order to move the state forward and create a solid infrastructure package and a stimulus for the economy and keeping people in their homes and solving the budget crisis. The budget crisis is getting worse by the day. I have a clock out in front of my office, as you know, that shows of how many is, $40 million a day that we are wasting by not having a budget, and it's $1 billion a month. So I don't have to tell you of how many kids we can insure or how many vulnerable citizens that we can provide for with $1 billion a month. So I urge the legislators to work as hard as we can and to come up and have a budget solution as quickly as possible. And I hope also that my Republican colleagues come to the table also, because as you know, it's much easier when everyone is at the table, Democrats and Republicans, because then we can really solve this problem very quickly. Thank you very much. And now we have the next speaker, which is Councilman Ray Treadaway, to come and say a few words about that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Governor. Good afternoon. And thank you, Governor, for those most important message. I didn't expect to see the Governor back out here a year from the date where we were so proud about his bond passing by a wide margin in the state of California. Then the residents of Natomas, 80,000 of them, we voted overwhelmingly to tax themselves for the levy improvements. And to be out here today and not having a budget passed and having the consequences of that, of this critical, very critical project to the 80,000 residents. There's over $3 billion in infrastructure and in value that's been placed out here in the last 9 years. We have the international airport and the two freeways, I-5 and 80 crossing. It is hardly understandable what's happening out here. And so we, again, with the governor, we urge the legislature to move as quickly as possible. We have 100-year protection in our sites. We have 200-year protection just a few years away to make these some of the strongest levees throughout the state of California. And we can't go backwards to today. I'd like to now introduce the second most important person here, the one in charge of improving these levees, standby of the Sacramento Area Flood Control Agency. Stain?
Thank you, Ray. And thank you very much, Governor and Lester Snow and the rest of you for being here today. I'm glad this location was picked as a site to highlight the impact of the budget crisis. This is not just one of the largest public safety concerns in the state, but nationally. Next to New Orleans, Sacramento has the greatest flood threat in the country, and Natomas is the heart of that issue. As Lester Snow pointed out, these flood improvements are not made overnight. They take time to implement, and we've gotten to the point we are today thanks to tremendous cooperation and support from many levels. The governor from the first day in office has been a strong supporter of flood protection, and Lester Snow and his team at DWR has adroitly and aggressively moved forward with programs to make it happen. Our local community, as Ray said, voted overwhelmingly to support a local assessment for flood protection, and our agency has been working very hard to expedite the planning and design work necessary to go forward. So we are poised now to move forward with $90 million worth of construction in the coming season. That needs to happen to keep our program on track and to get to the point where the economic life of this community can return, where we can once again be assured that our people will be able to be safe in their homes, and we can move forward together. It's critical that state funding continue for this program. We cannot go forward without it. As I said, we have leveraged our local funds, but we need the state to partner with us. So I hope at this point, with all the great bipartisan support we've had, the state legislative delegation has been very supportive of this work. The governor, the department, and the local people have all stood together, and we need to keep that momentum going. Therefore, I think it's critically important that we find a way to keep the state funds flowing for this work, and if so, we will be able to move forward aggressively and successfully to solve this flood problem for Sacramento and restore the bright economic future that we hope for. Thank you. I'd also like to now introduce Ken Macias, Chair of the California Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Okay. Thank you, Stein.
Good afternoon. We already heard that we need a budget, and the budget affects many things, and it's affecting projects like this levee maintenance and repair. I can tell you, I'm a native Sacramentan. I have seen over the years before there was building here, this area flooded. And I have also been on that side of the levee and as a boater, and have seen that side of the levee, and it's very clear to anyone that has lived around here that these levees need to be maintained, they need to be strengthened, they need to be constructed. That is obvious because these people and this community counts on it. As a statewide business leader, we really need this project because it really affects the economy. This project was actually being counted on, and now because of the state budget, there's some question about it. Many businesses are being hurt, particularly in the construction area. Without having this type of protection, building permits will not be given out, and as a result of that, homes won't be built. So not only construction for this project, but homes in the area. Obviously, we all know that has a ripple effect on the economy. I, as a business leader, over this past year, because of the economy, have been talking to several small businesses, and many of these businesses, especially in the construction area, are laying off people. I have talked to several people who own construction companies, homes, larger construction companies, and I can tell you right now, most of them are laying off 50% of their employees. And this isn't just seasonal. This is because of the economy and things like this when projects like this aren't going forward. So we really do need for the legislature to work with our governor in solving this state budget and getting this passed. So please, let's get that done, and let's get on with projects like this and other projects throughout the state. Now, I'd like to turn the mic over to Danny Curtin, Director of the California Conference of Carpenters. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Governor. Good to see you again, as always. Well, thank you very much. You know, it's easy to forget on a beautiful day like this, as the sky's clear and the sun comes out, that we are really in the middle of a perfect economic storm. You know, in California, we're used to having budget discussions that go on a little longer than they should, but this one has been compounded by a worldwide credit crunch, a crisis in the credit markets that have really, really made this budget problem much, much greater than any one we've ever had before. And before I get into my remarks, I do want to congratulate the governor for the work he's doing on this, but also Senator Steinberg, the new pro tem of the Senate, and the Speaker, Karen Bass, who have come up with a very innovative budget approach. Let's put it that way. It's very interesting. It's really got people back to the table, and it's something that could very, very, very well work. Now, I know the governor has been talking about some issues that he really wants to work on before he looks at signing this budget. He's been telling everybody he's not going to sign it without these changes. I want to talk to him about those just for a minute because they affect my organization, Carpenters. We have an 8.4% unemployment rate in California, one of the highest in the nation. But when it comes to construction, you just heard Mr. Macias talk about some firms cutting 50%. We're well into 15% unemployed, moving into 20% unemployed. If we continue to have this failure, we're going to be seeing serious depression rate unemployment in the construction industry. What we're looking at is public-private partnerships, and I know the governor's fighting very hard for it. Some people don't see the immediate concern of public-private partnerships in construction with the situation we're in today. But what happens when you have a tight budget, and you don't have the money to really build the infrastructure you need? You need to invite private investment so that you essentially expand your public investment money, however many billions that may be. If you can match that money and then get a revenue stream to pay it off over time. It's like the mortgage of a house. You build more infrastructure, you get it going faster. This is not a 2-month crisis. We're going to be working our way out of this for several years. And if we start attracting private investment in major public infrastructure projects, it will add a tremendous amount of economic stimulus. So it's really important for people who work in the construction industry and the economy as a whole. The other issue that seems to be getting a lot of attention is the CEQA suspension, or I don't even know the terminology. There are about 10 projects that have been chosen for a CEQA suspension. Now, that doesn't mean environment is not going to be considered. These are not green belt or new greenfield projects. They are the expansion of Highway 99, where it's 4 lanes into 6 lanes. We're not ignoring the environment in the construction process. We're just trying to prevent legal hurdles to actually expanding Highway 99 and other interchanges. It's for traffic enhancement. It actually will help the environment. But what we need to do is have those projects, as they say, shovel ready, so that when the federal economic stimulus package comes out, we have 10, 12 projects that are billions of dollars worth of projects that are ready to absorb that federal money. If we don't have those projects, that federal money will go to other states around the country who have their projects ready to go. They can't wait around for us to say, well, we'd like that federal stimulus money, but projects aren't ready because we have more CEQA hurdles to meet. It's not the environment that we're talking about. It's the legal impediments to being sued if the projects haven't been cleared. Again, we're not talking about brand new projects going into pristine areas. We're talking about expanding areas like 405 Highway, like the Highway 99, to keep the traffic moving. And really, that will help the environment. For anybody to think that this governor and the Democrats, I know this is a hard issue for many people, but we are leading the world in the global warming fight. So to turn around and suggest that this is going to put us back in any serious way, we're in an economic emergency, and we need these measures at this moment. So I congratulate the governor for holding the line and continuing that discussion. The one other thing I do want to say, I have friends on the Republican side. I'm encouraging them to get back to the table. This is a crisis. This is not your standard budget fight. Yes, nobody likes to see new taxes, and I know the governor behind me is just as strong on that as anybody else. But when Ronald Reagan was the governor and there was a fiscal crisis, not nearly of the magnitude this one. By the way, this one is going to be larger and probably is already larger than anything we've seen in our lifetimes. Ronald Reagan made that move and came up with a fair budget that was balanced between some new revenues and some budget cuts. When Pete Wilson walked in the door and faced a $15 billion budget crisis, he too was not known as a big tax and spender. But he found a fair budget that included revenues and included budget cuts. Now's the time. There is no easy or simple or painless answer to this problem. Everybody's going to share in the pain. So the question is how to do it fairly. And budget revenues are going to be important, and cuts are going to be important. And the governor will address that, I'm sure, with the questions that are coming up. And having already wasted some of your time, perhaps, I'm going to bring the governor back up for questions. And it's my pleasure to reintroduce Governor Schwarzenegger.
Thank you very much, Danny. Thank you. Any questions about that yet, please?
I'm sure that you know that there are some longtime supporters of yours who do not believe that any tax increase can happen with a majority vote. You've been asked this a little bit in the last couple of days, but I want to try it again if you can. Would you ever sign a tax increase that did not have Republican votes?
Well, first of all, let me just say that, as I've said many times, I prefer having my Republican friends at the table. and I prefer to get a 2/3 vote on revenue increases, but we do need revenue increases, and it's sad for me to say that they're not at the table. I cannot force them to the table, so therefore, in order to save California, I'm forced to go and just negotiate with the Democrats at this point, and then also resolve this issue just with the Democrats. So this is an issue that I was a situation that I'm forced in because of a lack of participation by the Republicans, and I will move forward with that, and I let others, as I've said to you, debate the issue of what is revenue, what is within revenue a fee, and what is a tax. Because, as you know, there's people that are threatening that immediately if we do something like that they will be suing. But then again, this is nothing new because endless amount of projects that we pass in our capital get sued afterwards. And so, some you win and some you lose.
Not to mention your own credibility on what could be a very questionable legal situation here with these tax increases.
Well, there's many questions about the legality of anything. And so to me, when I look at the state and I see the state going over the cliff, I think we know that what will save the state is by making drastic spending cuts and also come up with some extra revenues. If we do that, then we know that we can continue on with our infrastructure building. We know then that we can go and stimulate the economy again. We know that the bonds can be sold again. We know we can create jobs again. We can put people into their homes if they go and send me the legislation down that I've proposed. So there's all kinds of great things that can happen within the state of California if we go and have a budget and show responsibility. And let me tell you something. I have always said, and I've said that the first time when I came into office, political courage is not political suicide. I am the first one to be able to take risks. I have no problem with that at all, because for saving the state of California and providing a better life for the people of California, I would do anything to get that done.
Governor, can you please detail what the remaining sticking points are with the Democrats?
I think that you have heard, Danny Curtin explain some of it when you talk about CEQA. We have suspended CEQA many times in the past. And also in emergency cases, but in non-emergency cases also. The Olympics in 1984 is, for instance, in Los Angeles was one example. In the building a park and the building a park and all of those kind of things, we have suspended it. So there's a sticking point there where they feel uncomfortable because, I know it's a struggle with the environmentalists. They're at their office and they're telling them don't do it. And then there's also difficulties with design build. We know that we can get projects built much quicker if we do design build rather than waiting for the design 18 months and then start building the project. We want to put shovel into the dirt now. We want to put people to work right now. So and then public-private partnerships, as Danny has explained also, it's very important. There's only so much money on the public sector out there, but the private sector has a lot of money. They want to come in and partner with the state of California and build a lot of those projects, if it's court buildings, if it is roads, and all those kind of things. Why shouldn't we go and do that? It's again just to protect the union. That's why they don't want to go there. So this is why it is very important that we move forward on those issues. That is just some of those issues. We are very close. I think that in some areas, in some other areas, when it comes to spending cuts, we are not there yet. But we are taking one day at a time. And we, like yesterday, talked about some of those obstacles. Today, we are addressing other obstacles, and then we will continue on until we come to an agreement. Look, everyone knows that if there's a will, there's a way. And I think this is an important thing here. And I think that I see a will in Speaker Bass in her eyes, and I see a will also in Darrell Steinberg's and President Pro Tem. I see a will there in his eyes. I think otherwise they wouldn't be sitting there. Otherwise we wouldn't be sitting there right now and talking, and I will be leaving here and go right back to the Capitol again and continue talking. We're going to try everything that we can, and I think, like I said yesterday, there is a really good shot that we can get it done. Absolutely. Well, there's no discussion there as far as that goes, because this is in my authority through an executive order that I can do that. I think that I cannot promise the state workers, and by the way, I want to make sure that you understand that I 100% appreciate the great work that our state workers are doing. I am a big fan of theirs. They have done extraordinary work, but we only have a limited amount of money, so I cannot promise to pay them the same amount of money, have all the holidays, and keep everyone working. I cannot promise that because we have a limited amount of money and we are running out of money. So what we are trying to do is trying to have those furloughs and trying to get, lay off some of the workers so that we have enough money to get us through these things. I have made it very clear to the labor leaders that I hate laying off anybody, because every person that gets laid off, I see that person being out there and not being able to provide for their family or having no health care and all of those things. That's terrible. That's why I made it an offer to them and said, let's all reduce the salaries or do something so that we save some money there. Absolutely. Thank you very much. Thank you. We are moving forward wonderfully, and I think that everyone understands that I have to go and talk to the people and let them know why are we canceling now infrastructure projects when we, in fact, they voted for infrastructure projects. It's because of the inaction of the legislature. Thank you very much.